I'll continue my coverage of the Gambits with one of the oldest openings in chess, the Greco Gambit. The starting moves of the Greco Gambit are e4, e5, bishop c4, knight f6, this is the bishop's opening, and then f4. White's idea is to play the King's Gambit with the bishop on c4 and black's knight on f6. The best way to answer it is knight takes e4. The move d5 is also a reasonable alternative of knight e4, and the one which was introduced by Anderson in 1851. E takes d5. F takes e5 is bad in view of the simple knight takes e4 with the threats of queen h4 and d takes c4. So e takes d5, knight takes d5. This is the most precise. Anderson played e4, which is also good for black and leads to positions which remind us the Falkbeer counter gambit in the King's Gambit. But the move knight takes d5 is better. Queen e2. F takes e5 would be a blunder in view of queen h4 check with the double attack on e1 and c4. So queen e2, knight takes f4, queen takes e5, knight e6, knight f3, knight c6, attacking the queen, queen e4, bishop c5, d3, and now the strong knight c2 d4 with the attack on c2, knight takes d4, queen takes d4 with a slight edge for black thanks to a better development. Now we are coming back to the main line, knight takes e4, d3. Greco's line, dated 1620, starts with knight f3, which black can answer with d5, simply taking the center and attacking the bishop on c4. E takes f4 given by Greco is also good, but d5 is better. Bishop b3, bishop c5, and black is clearly better in this position. So d3. Queen h4 check. This move is the most accurate. Though d5 leads to the black's advantage too. After d5, white has to choose between the moves bishop b5 check and d takes e4. Let's start with bishop b5 check. c6, d takes e4, queen a5 check, queen d2. The move knight c3 is strongly answered by d4. Black wins back a piece and obtains a clear edge. So queen d2, queen takes b5, knight c3, queen c5, knight f3, d4, knight e2, and e takes f4. Black's position is better. Now d takes e4 instead of bishop b5 check. Then we take the bishop, d takes c4, queen takes d8, king takes d8, f takes e5, knight c6, knight f3, the bishop e6. This is the most accurate move. Bishop g4, which was played by Untitled in the game Tauchtweißes Untitled Augsburg 1946, is less accurate. So bishop e6, bishop e3, king c8, knight c3, b6, preparing king b7, and after the long castle king b7, black is slightly better thanks to a bishop pair and double pawns on the e file. So now we are coming back to the most accurate move, queen h4 check. g3, knight takes g3, and knight f3. This is a typical intermediate move. The queen goes back to h5 and rook g1. And despite black is 2 pawns up, he has to be very accurate here. Now only the counter gambit d5 promises black better chances. After knight f5, which was played by Hurwitz in 1848, white plays rook g5, queen h3, and bishop takes f7 check. This is a very beautiful idea. King takes f7. The move king d8 is better and leads to a draw by repetition after rook h5, queen g4, rook g5, and so on, when neither side can deviate from it. However, after king takes f7, white answers with a beautiful rook h5, attacking the queen, and here white's chances are higher. Queen takes h5 was played. The move queen g2 is better and necessary, in fact, when after rook takes f5, king g8, rook g5, queen h3 and f takes e5, white restores material balance and obtains a better position thanks to an easy development. So queen takes h5, and here comes the refutation, knight takes e5 check with a discovered attack on h5. King g8, queen takes h5. So white won the queen for a rook and a bishop. Black has to play g6. This position occurred in the game Sprakeley Hurwitz, Liverpool 1848. Here white could have finished the game in style by means of knight takes g6, h takes, queen takes g6 check, knight g7, f5, black cannot stop f6, knight c6, f6, knight e5, queen e4. Now both knights on e5 and g7 are under attack and black loses one of them. d6, sorry, f takes g7, bishop takes g7, and bishop f4 protecting the h2 pawn. Now black's attempt to win some material back is answered by king f2, bishop takes b2, and now the beautiful knight c3. The idea is that bishop takes c3 is met by queen c4 with a double attack on g8 and c3. While after bishop takes a1, queen g6 check, king f8 and bishop h6, white develops a winning attack against the black's king. D5. The best move for black in this position. White has a few options. We'll start with bishop takes d5, then e takes f4. This is the main point of the previous move. Now the bishop on d4 gets under attack on d5. Knight c3, protecting the bishop, and bishop b4. Another strong intermediate move, pinning the c3 knight. Black attacks the bishop on d5 again. Bishop takes f4, counterattack on g3, queen takes d5, rook takes g3, and then black can simply castles. Queen e2, white creates a threat of bishop h6. In case of the immediate bishop h6, black has a double attack, queen e6, winning a piece. So queen e2, bishop f5. Now black is ready to answer bishop h6 with bishop g6. Queen e7. This is an interesting tactical resource which has a purpose to unpin the c3 knight. Bishop takes c3, b takes c3, and bishop g6. And here black's chances are slightly better. The move rook takes g3 is dubious because of the simple d takes c4, rook g5, queen h3, rook g3, taking on e5 doesn't help either because of bishop e7 with the following knight c6. So rook g3, queen f5, provoking the rook to g5, rook g5. If queen e2, then c takes d3, c takes d3, and knight c6. And this position is also clearly better for black. So rook g5, then queen d7, preparing f6, knight takes e5, or rook takes e5, bishop e7, again with the following knight c6, knight takes e5, queen e6, and black is winning in both cases. White should try bishop b5 check after d5. Then c6, rook takes g3, and bishop g4. This move is better than capturing the bishop on b5, as black creates a threat of e4, while the bishop on b5 is still hanging. Knight c3. After bishop a4, black plays e4, d takes e4, d takes e4. Black wins the knight on f3 and obtains a winning position. So knight c3, bishop b4, another pin. This way black is renewing his threat of e4, bishop a4, and finally e4. Attacking the pinned piece with a pawn. D takes e4, d takes e4, and queen d4. This is the only way to create counterplay. The bishop on b4 and the g7 pawn are under attack, and so bishop takes c3 check, queen takes c3. I also looked at b takes c3 with the idea to develop the dark squared bishop to a3. This idea is interesting, but it seems black retains an upper hand after bishop takes f3, queen takes g7, rook f8, bishop a3, knight d7. And now either queen g5, queen takes g5, rook takes g5, h6, and rook h8. Black is a pawn up and his position is better. Or bishop takes f8. Then queen takes h2, creating a threat of checkmate in 1. Rook takes f3 is necessary. E takes f3. Now long castle. Queen takes f4 check. King b2 and knight takes f8. Black has a huge material advantage. So white should try to attack the king with rook e1 check. But black escapes the checks in a nice way. King d7. Rook d1 check, king e7, rook e1 check, king d6, rook d1 and king c5. There are no more checks, so rook d4. Bishop b3 f2 is also clearly better for black, so rook d4. Knight e6. An important double attack which forces an exchange of queens. Rook takes f4, knight takes g7, rook takes f7, rook g8 protecting the knight, rook takes f3 and knight e8. And black retains an extra pawn. So now we are coming back to queen takes c3 instead of b takes c3. Then bishop takes f3, queen takes g7, rook f8. Black is ready to finish development of the queen side with the knight d7 and long castle. So queen e5 check, queen takes e5, f takes e5, knight d7, bishop h6. And now the most accurate seems to be king e7 in order to recapture on f8 with the rook. c3, knight takes e5. Black obtains 2 pawns for an exchange and slightly better chances. So as you can see in all lines of the Greco Gambit, black obtains an advantage or at least slightly better chances.